there, I'm Sarah Holbrook. I'm the Executive Director of the Pinhead Institute and the very lucky interviewer of our mayor, Sean Murphy. How you doing?
Hi, Sarah. Good to see you, as always.
So happy to see you. So what's been going on with you? Have you been getting up skiing? The snow's been pretty good there, right?
Not enough. Although
Not
my
enough.
sister's in town this week, and so I actually just got a ski pass for her, so we are going out
good.
tomorrow and Friday and Saturday and hopefully Sunday.
Good.
So
I'm going to jump into one of the questions from the community. What's your favorite run?
I just love stuff under Chair 9. So
Yeah.
I'm very equally happy with any of those.
So those are all good.
Yep.
Yeah. So what's been going on in town? You had a council meeting yesterday.
We did.
What are the headlines?
Well, the big headline, the big drama was dog poop. So yesterday we spent a lot of time, 90
There
minutes.
is a fair amount of dog poop. It doesn't
It's
melt.
true. No, you're right. And when it melts, it's still there,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and frankly, this is a community issue that we've all struggled with for decades.
Yeah.
And there's living in New York City, I'm sure that you recall that people are leash law obligated.
Oh, yeah.
And dog poop picking up obligated.
Definitely.
And I too lived in that culture, so that's part of my mindset. So my dog actually doesn't go off leash, and he doesn't do anything without me right there to pick it up.
Yeah.
But we're trying to have we're revisiting this issue, and frankly, it's because places like the River Trail have become a lot
Poopier?
There's
Can
a
we
lot
say poopier?
Yeah, I think that's better than what our town attorney said yesterday, which was failure to defecate. And it's like, wait, no, that's the other way around.
Exactly.
So,
Too much defecation.
Yeah. So we're basically trying to find the right
No
balance.
defecation without representation, I think, is going to be our slogan.
Well, our dog owners do vote, and we're very conscious of that. So, like all good politicians, we're willing to listen to all sides of the argument.
Yeah.
But the one issue that really we all agree on is that we need to reduce the dog waste that's being left behind.
Yeah.
So
no poop left behind.
better poop than children, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
so
for
we.
Sure. But still, don't leave your poop behind.
No, please don't.
Yeah. No.
So we're wrestling with a proposal. I guess Dan Ryder, who was one of our code enforcement officers who retired this past year, Dan was a vigilant river trail sort of poop monitor, patroller, citation writer. And so when he retired, I think one of his parting requests was, please try to get this under control.
Yeah.
So for that reason and many others, we've decided, okay, it's time to revisit the issue. So we had a work session yesterday for 90 minutes. The focus was really trying to figure out how to increase owner compliance with the obligation to decrease, what you leave behind.
Sure.
And the takeaways were, frankly, we have some people who, make the very logical argument that dogs off leash are a good socialization technique for the animals, that some dogs on leash can be very aggressive. So it's one of these things where, there's no right answer, there's no bright line, there's no perfect way to have the right outcome.
Yeah.
We have to figure out maybe where there are areas where dogs can be off leash at certain times of the day, and certain times of the day where we have greater density, like the river trail, like the commercial core, like some of our in-town neighborhoods, where it may be appropriate to require people to be leashing their dogs. Currently, the leash law only applies to basically the downtown core,
right, just
on
a couple
Main Street.
Of block
so when you get a block off Main Street, you're in good shape.
And so, is there like a
leash.
serious correlation between poop and leashing? Like, clearly, if your dog is on a leash and it's pooping,
I think the
oh, it's your dog
correlation is
pooping?
we make the assumption, which seems reasonable, that if your dog is on a leash,
You're gonna
it's
notice.
impossible that he or she could poop and you not notice
it, and
Yes.
then therefore be liable for picking it up.
So
whereas
you
if
got
they're
it.
off a leash, they might run around the corner. You're not going to see it, and then what you don't see, you don't pick up.
Precisely.
Okay.
So, and on the river trail, same thing. Your dog goes down toward the river, and you're not, in the weeds with the dog. So how will you actually know?
Right.
So it's trying to provide that certainty and trying to therefore achieve a greater pickup rate.
Right.
So,
if we don't want to have to leash our dogs, we should get very serious
just pick
right
it up,
now
and then we
about
won't have
picking
to
it up,
worry.
and then we don't have to worry about the
we won't
leash
have to
law.
expand leash laws.
Okay.
And of course, that is a universe of should the whole town be leash lawed, or should only a certain street or two be leash lawed, and then in that case, people are just going to walk up a block or two off that area, or are we going to paint the curbs so that people actually know? Because we have a lot of visitors who have dogs, and they don't really have any way of knowing that only this particular 6-block area plus this other little carve-out block here is requiring a leash.
Right.
So, it's a little unfair to people at times because we don't really have any way for them to have actual notice. So it's kind of one of these delicate things. Do you go full boat and require leashing everywhere, or do you? And if you did that, then what are your sort of mitigating sort of measures? And those would need to be more more dog parks, or they need to be areas in town where certain times of the day there is a leash requirement, but other times of the day there is no leash requirement, like Town
Right.
Park early in the morning or later in the evening,
Right.
when there are not functions or games or other things going on there. So
Yeah.
it's not an easy issue, but it's one where there's been enough sort of increasing public disgust with the increasing
issue.
amount of poop that we
That
needed
isn't
to
melting.
start discussing this.
So it's just in the
stay
starting
tuned.
discussion
We had a work
stage.
session.
Okay.
We'll let,
What's the next step?
The next step is that staff will consider some specific proposed language to expand, but not make it the entire town, but expand the area where leashing is required. That would include a greater portion of the downtown core, and that would also generally include the river trail between Town Park and Mahoney, effectively.
Sure, which is where the majority
Which is where the
of
greatest density is anywhere, and that's really that's the conflict, where you have density of people, and you're trying to also accommodate animals, and you're trying to let people be able to traverse without, stepping in stuff. We need to find the right balance. So we've
Keep us
opened the
posted.
can, the
Yeah.
top of that can, and
Yeah.
let's see what comes out of that.
Yeah, okay.
But,
So
so
that-
dog poop was a big issue
You
yesterday.
know, it's not bad if you finish a town council meeting and the headline is dog poop. I mean, that means
And-
that the rest of the town is in a very healthy
Not to
state.
plug another news operator in town, but that seemed to be their top story on last night's news as well. And so we did have the State of the Town address, which is something that I do every 6 months. And the highlights there were very much, obviously this is a 6-month snapshot, and really the milestones that we can point to from the last 6 months are housing, thankfully. We completed 8 bedrooms at Shandoka. We completed the sale of now 7 out of 8, and the 8th sale will close in about 2 weeks on Spruce House. So those units at the corner of Spruce and Pacific
Right.
are built and sold.
Right.
And then now we are knee-deep in the final process for Virginia Placer. We should be breaking ground on that in the spring.
Okay.
And expect that by the spring of 2018, we'll have housing for another 100 people out there.
Wow.
But at least we've completed that process in terms of getting all the approvals necessary, getting all the planning finalized.
Wow.
And so now it's a matter of just, getting the shovels in the ground.
Yeah.
We also then are in the master planning phase for the SMPA lot, that corner that the town owns, where there's going to be a 3-level parking garage below
Is that
ground.
the Four Corners across from the market?
Correct, across
Yeah.
from Baked and Tell You Right,
Okay,
yes.
got it, yep.
So,
Uh-huh.
and the market, yep.
Okay, right. So that's going to be the future home of 70 parking spaces.
Plus
and
the AHA school, plus
and
10 affordable housing units.
10 affordable housing units. Will there also be market
No.
housing as well? No,
Nope.
just affordable
That'll be
housing.
it.
Okay.
It'll be
Is
a-
it going to
a
be
mi-
ground floor commercial, or will that be
No.
AHA?
AHA will have a portion of the ground floor, and then I think another portion of the ground floor will be partly parking too. So there won't be any traditional commercial at that location. So
okay.
it'll be strictly a public, a parking function, a school function, and an affordable housing function.
Wow, okay. And that is, I'm sorry, at what stage now?
That is actually in still the master planning stages. We're expecting that probably by mid-2017, that will be finalized in terms of what it should look like, and then it can go through the process of HARC and P&Z to make sure that it's compliant with our relevant standards. And then we should hopefully be breaking ground on that late in 17 or early 18 and have that completed approximately a year later.
Wow.
So, but at least that's definitely in the pipeline, so that too is a milestone. We
Yeah.
completed on the non-sexy front the exciting river restoration. So
Okay.
people saw some minimal disruption in Town Park during that period, but we
Town
were able
Park
to
or the
reroute.
Valley
I'm sorry,
floor?
the Valley floor.
Sure.
Thanks for the.
I'm on it.
You're always paying attention. That's what we like about you.
Yeah, I like to be precise. So
keep
it
them-
was the rerouting of the river back to the original meander
Correct.
from the kind of channel
That project
that
was
it was
completed
in.
in November of 2016, so we're done with that. So all good. The reports are great, and we'll let that riparian environment heal, repair itself, and go back to a natural state, which is the desired effect. And then we've also completed the water sewer line underneath the last part of Main Street, which we saw on the east end. Some people who live down in that end
Right.
were inconvenienced for a few months, and we apologize for that. And then some people like me who live on South Davis Street were inconvenienced
Right.
for a few months,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry about that, even though I suffered, with
Yeah,
you as well.
sure.
And
So
so
those
that's-
projects are
those
finished.
infrastructure projects
and
are
now
finished.
will it move on to different areas in both directions,
Water
or is
line
the
wise-
water line finished now with its upgrade?
We're finished with what you're going to see. The other sections of the water line that really will require future attention are in the valley floor. And so we'll
okay.
be focusing on them in the coming years. So, but that, in terms of, keeping the infrastructure renewed and keeping disruptions to a minimum, you won't need to worry about water line inconveniencing you in the near
Okay.
future.
Okay,
So
sure.
construction, therefore.
Yeah, and what about the water treatment plant and the,
The water treatment plant, the Pandora treatment
Yeah.
plant, is actually up, it's fully functional and running well. You may have heard there was a mishap last summer up
Yeah.
at the Bridal Veil Power Station
Uh-huh.
where there was sort of a back surge in the water pressure that ended up damaging some of the operating equipment. So this coming spring, when it's safe to work up there, the town will be doing a bypass around the Bridal Veil Station, and in order to bring the water down from Blue Lake and effectively get it to in its full volume capacity back down to Pandora, and then we will work on remediating and fixing whatever the Bridal Veil repairs are necessary inside for that bull wheel and everything to run properly and generate power, which is
which is
necessary
not
for-
happening now.
Correct.
Right,
It's
okay,
been-
so once the weather warms up again, we'll be seeing another piping thing going on up there.
That's
where
correct,
you're-
and that'll
you're
be the
building some
exciting
bypass
aerial
pipe.
acrobatics
Yeah.
of people who
Yeah.
just
I know those
frankly,
guys,
2
they're
years
kind
ago,
of bad, you know what I
think
mean?
that's
Yeah.
a pretty technically correct
Yeah,
statement.
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, they're like the pipes are super heavy, and then there's crazy exposure.
Yeah,
It's
no.
not-
So you
it's
don't
not
want
for the
people doing
faint
that
of
in the month
heart.
of January.
No,
So
definitely not.
let's look forward to April, May, June for that. So
Okay, so that's a big kind
That's
of improvement. What else is going
happening.
to be happening moving forward once the weather warms up a little bit that might be, town improvements that we can all look forward to?
infrastructure projects, actually, during 2017, you'll see in the summer that we'll start work on the children's pool in Town Park. So we all know that, in the last year or two, we had a construction project to create the adult Olympic-sized swimming pool. Now we're going to have a zero gravity entry sort of younger patron pool that'll be adjacent to that pool. So that project will go forward in 2017. So
that's fun.
you'll see some improvement and hopefully another increase in quality of life thereafter for our very youngest residents.
Right,
As
yeah.
well.
Oh, that's great.
That's kind of the major infrastructure ticket for the year.
Sure.
We don't,
Oh, the town park stage is finished.
The town park
And you're not
stage is
going to go
finished.
on to the
There's-
next stage where it was, what, green rooms or bathrooms?
There
or
was,
some
a
improvement.
contemplation to do a restroom build out there as well as a catering facility build out. That's not a 2017 item.
Okay.
I think that's something sort of that's pending. We'll look at it again in 2018.
Yeah.
Obviously we talk about revenues all the time, and
Yeah.
there's been, we had, even on the real estate transfer side of our tax ledger this year, for 2016, we were 11% below where we were for 2015, but it was 20% more than what we budgeted for to come
Right.
in from that. So that is actually the source of the money that would be used for if there were to be a phase 2 of the town park stage. But that's not something we're going to be doing in 2017.
Because there's just not a
Well, I mean, in an ideal world, yes, the users of that facility, the crews and things would love to have, a catering facility there, and it would make life a lot easier. And certainly for the patrons who are there, having expanded restroom options are obviously a very, very good thing. And so we want to make sure that that's provided at some point, but, all in due course and all as we can afford it and all as is prudent. So.
so it just doesn't seem prudent to do it this summer?
Well, I think we had thought originally that we might be doing it this summer, but I think in terms of everyone taking a step back and trying to, no one can forecast where the economy's going. We've had some significant changes in our national leadership, so one doesn't know, and one shouldn't be making large expenditures maybe without pause.
Right, and,
So-
and this is when we usually talk about sales tax and real estate transfer tax,
Sure.
but those numbers are still the same numbers
Sales
as last
tax,
time?
right, sales tax, we don't have the numbers through December. That gets reported at the end of January, and we're
Okay.
literally just a day or so away from that. So our finance department hasn't calculated that, but through the end of November of 2016, we were about almost 7% ahead for sales tax, which is a
Okay.
typical, annual increase for us on average in the last 8 to 10 years. So we're on track for sure there. So we've collected more than what we anticipated again in the sales tax category, and that's a good thing.
Yep.
That again goes for things like keeping the lights on, paying the salaries of the 95 town employees, and making sure that your streets are plowed. And that's another sort of issue where we are trying to do better. But here's another balance issue. We try to limit the amount of magnesium chloride and the other salt, the other dissolving agents that we use on ice. This year we've had kind of a strange thing where even this week we're in the 50-degree mark. You know, in the daytime
so
it's a
warm,
little
yeah.
crazy and unusual.
And it was -7 last
So our
week.
freeze
yeah.
thaw that we're expecting to happen later in the spring is
Uh-huh.
really is happening right now, which is creating an ice issue that none of us want.
Right.
In fact, I've had a lot of outreach from people, you know, indicating their dissatisfaction with it. I know the town manager, Greg Clifton, has been fielding a routine, multiple calls on a
Yeah.
daily basis, and so we're doing the best we can with
What do you do
Well,
with
if you
that?
set
I
a
mean-
policy that we're going to try to be respectful of the valley floor, we're going to be respectful of the San Miguel River, we don't,
And not put
because
the
where are
salt
these things
in.
going to go?
Right, but also the salt doesn't work apparently out below 28 degrees anyhow. It just
And
doesn't melt, so it doesn't matter after that. And that's, I mean, it's much lower than that when you really have a serious salt problem. I mean, a
Right.
serious ice problem.
So we're really
So
not
there's
going to
no
get an
great
effective
solution.
outcome,
Yeah,
even if we
maybe
were
a
to do that.
flamethrower. Do you ever think of
It's-
that? Just
yes,
like Mad
as a
Max,
matter of
hiring
fact-
Mad Max and just having him kind of patrol through town. First, I think he should like clear off the parts that go to the drains because a lot of that water melts and then it can't go anywhere.
It's actually interesting you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
that because the town manager and I were at a conference last week,
Mm-hmm.
and he and I had a couple of, you know, down moments, and we started talking about some of the ice and the snow. And so I said, isn't there some sort of attachment that we could potentially acquire and bolt onto the back of some of our machinery that we already own that would do that, go over areas? And he said he was not currently aware of any such thing, but
If anyone knows, get in touch with us.
yeah.
What's your email, Mayor?
it's smurphy@telluride-co.gov, and I'll be happy to forward that to the head of Public Works, Paul Rudd, who's
Exactly.
PRUUD at telluride-co.gov,
Yeah.
or Greg Clifton, G. Clifton at telluride-co.gov.
Yeah.
So obviously, don't ever hesitate to get in touch with us. That's why we're here. That's our job. We're supposed to be responsive, and I had a second homeowner actually email me the other night and indicate that he was pretty upset because he almost missed his flight because he was unable to get out of an alleyway where his car was parked. And so I said to him, you know, I get it, and even my own 75-year-old mother canceled her trip here this winter because
it
of
was just too dangerous,
the ice
yeah.
and the snow buildup. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but this is a good problem to have. Let's, you know,
Right, better
not
than
that anybody
too much
wants to
snow,
slip and
yeah.
fall and be injured, but
Yeah.
too much snow and too much, you know, accumulation is actually a sign that the ski resort's doing better
Yeah.
than before, and
Yeah.
that our, you know, strange environmental climate change thing is actually maybe making things a little more erratic for us, but it's actually not denying us, you know, the
Skiing
basic
winters.
element that we need, which
Yeah.
is skiing winters.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Are you in contact with the mountain about what's going on with their business and how vibrant their season has been so far?
They did, their CEO, Bill Jensen, and Robert Stenhammer did come down and make a presentation to us, 3 council meetings, I guess. And basically, they shared with us, the real focus of that meeting was, okay, they've done great for the whatever cycle. They were at a really high skier level for the Christmas, New Year's holiday. They were really wanting to help share with us their master plan. And that's something you can find on the Telski website as well. That's a vision for the next 10 years. That's something that the Forest Service requires them to deliver every 10 years. And so they're at a point where that's appropriate now. And so the idea that their master plan includes, you know, replacing certain lifts and expanding some on-mountain dining options and things like that, things that would benefit everybody, are encouraging. But of course, there's a, you know, is the revenue sufficient question, and I can't answer that because I don't have the peek behind the curtain to know really what's going on in their house.
Right.
But
Do they talk to the town about ideas for making the ski operations more green? I know they pump water, and then they have to use both energy to get the water up, but then also our water supply. Is there conversations about that?
I know that they're conscious of that. You know, we're always seeking, you know, for them to do more, and we can all do more ourselves too. So
Yeah.
it's not just we're asking this one way. We're imposing the same sort of ask on ourselves.
Sure.
But I'm not aware of any new breakthroughs or environmental efficiency improvements that they've made. But
we'll keep
that's
asking
always
that question.
you know, something top of mind for us, and they get it. You know, they're not trying to go out of their way not to be good stewards either.
Right.
They know it's a win-win for them, and that this community and their guest base, you know, reacts positively to that.
Right,
So
exactly. People feel
it's-
happier paying into a system that
it's really
seems a
a
little bit more
no-brainer.
green.
And in fact, I think you might see some news soon about the fact that there might be an initiative that Telski is very supportive of to help fund more of our Forest Service operations and to do more for forest health.
Oh, nice.
And so I've seen something that I don't think it's public yet, but they are very actively working toward helping to raise more money for that objective.
Oh, neat.
So
Keep us posted.
I think that'll
Yeah.
it could be something we
We
can talk
want
about
details.
in 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah,
exactly. Let's do that for sure.
So-
Speaking of new initiatives, I know that there was something that the town was putting out in the middle of January. I think it was something about all are welcome. This is kind of switching a little bit to the political side of things away
Sure.
from the environmental.
Well, the
But
credit
let's
for
talk a little
that,
bit about
not
that.
to claim credit for that, this is really something that the county, especially Amy Levick, who is our former county commissioner now,
Sure.
she and Chris Holstrom were the two county folks who were spearheading, Chris being the newly elected county commissioner, that at that moment, I think, she had just taken office, and Amy had just left office. So
Right.
those two had been the real driving forces behind trying to make sure that our community, obviously in a changing national landscape where we have rhetoric that talks about deporting 11 million people and that people are somehow going to be subject to scrutiny, what the county considered was what a lot of other counties and towns across the country have been considering. The request or the proposal was made, well, are you willing to designate yourself as a sanctuary county? And San Miguel County looked at it, and basically the federal law that none of us had any input in writing is pretty clear on the subject. It basically says that notwithstanding any local, municipal, county, state ordinance, whatever that conflicts with any federal law will not prevail. So if
Okay.
there's a legal challenge, let's say that, let's say a county were to designate itself as a sanctuary and there were to be a conflict of any sort between federal law and that law would not survive any judicial scrutiny.
Sure.
That's a process that could take a couple years.
Okay.
So the teeth, though, that we're seeing that the certain federal agents or certain federal actors are now saying, look, we're going to withhold federal funding from any county or town or other organization that is declaring itself as a sanctuary city. So San Miguel County, I think, took a very long and objective look at this, decided that they would not adopt a sanctuary county posture, but instead of that, they wanted to send the same message, which is, we're not in the business of scrutinizing, and we're not in the business of trying to help round up anybody. And in fact, we recognize that a lot of people who may not be lawfully present, that's the legal term
Lawfully
of art,
present,
lawfully present, even
Sure.
those that are not lawfully present play a very integral and important part of our community life. And so in our opinion, we're not federal agents, and this goes for the town of Telluride as well. We are not agents of the federal government. It's not our business to do what the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, their role is completely separate from us. We are not their deputies. And so what we wanted to do, what Amy Levick and Chris Holstrom and others who were instrumental in getting this gathering together were trying to say is that we're not going to make any distinction on our own. We're not going to we can't do anything to obstruct the federal authorities if they were to come to town.
Sure.
But on the other hand, we're certainly not in the business of trying to assist them with this goal.
Right.
So the idea was, you're welcome, you're part of our community, and we're not interested in your lawfully present status or not.
Right.
So, and in fact, there have been some talks more recently with law enforcement officials from the town of Mountain Village, the town of Telluride, and San Miguel County, where those law enforcement leaders are going to make themselves available in at least one or more future community outreach sessions, so
To
that people can come
explain
and say, here's
to-
my concern
right.
in a safe place.
Right.
They don't have to worry that they're
With
being
amnesty
monitored
or something
or
like
that
that, yeah.
someone is waiting outside the door to take them away.
Yeah.
It's more of a, look, let me put you at ease. Here's our job. And frankly, the real determining, not to be too legal about this, but the determining factor is, is there a reasonable basis to say that there's some sort of you're not lawfully present? Well, what reasonable basis would someone who just stops a motorist, let's say, who just has a Mexican driver's license?
Right.
There's no reasonable basis on the part of that police officer to say, oh, just because you have a Mexican ID that
You
you're
may
not
not
lawfully
be
present.
lawfully
So
present.
even if that officer went rogue and then tried to take the person into the county is really where the jail function occurs. If they brought them into our county sheriff's office and said, I think this person's not lawfully present, they would effectively be laughed out of there because they don't have a regional factual basis to make that statement. So the idea is, don't get ahead of yourself in terms of spinning out a parade of horribles. Just please have a valid license, whether it's a foreign license or a Colorado license. There is a program now where the state of Colorado does grant non-lawfully present people here driver's licenses. We want people to have appropriate insurance for vehicles regardless of their lawful presence status, and we simply just don't want them, speeding or drinking and driving.
Yeah.
So stay away from, those foot faults,
Right.
and you won't find yourself having to worry about. But even if you were stopped in those circumstances, there wouldn't be a rational legal basis for you to be incarcerated just because someone thought you might not be legally present.
Right.
So I think the idea is just doing as much community outreach as we can.
So the word is getting out.
Well, it's starting to get out, and the idea of this January 15th meeting was to, get some
Kind of launch it.
segment of the community, and not everybody can come at the same time, that sort of thing. So there have been meetings with some of the leaders in our Latino community where the law enforcement and the mayor and town managers have really basically said, look, please convey this anytime you think it's appropriate, anytime you have an audience that we don't.
Right.
Please tell them that
Right.
this is our posture.
All right.
So, and that's
Hopefully,
that.
anyone who's wondering is watching this broadcast right now.
I hope so. And if you have more questions, just email me and I'm happy. And in fact, the law enforcement officials, they have their own policies and procedures that their offices, the Colorado Association of Sheriffs, for example, mandates that bill masters follow certain procedures and policies. And the town of Mountain Village and the town of Telluride have their own Marshal's Department policies. They can't just ignore those policies. And those policies have to be based on fair and reasonable. And so, in effect, don't expect those to be changing
Right.
anytime soon.
Oh, good.
So,
That's good to know.
I think people should not be unduly afraid in our community.
Okay, good. What else have you been grappling with as mayor?
Gosh, is that not enough?
That's dog poop, sales tax, infrastructure repair, lawful.
Obviously, the last part of our year, we focused a lot on our budget for the coming year and being pretty conservative where we can. Going forward, I think, the real big thing that is top of mind for me now for the next couple of months is really there are two circulating petitions that relate to affordable housing in our
Okay.
community in the town of Telluride. So each petition, to oversimplify it, each petition has identified a certain set of lots on the east end of town.
Okay.
And one petition requires those lots to be used only for affordable housing, only for senior housing, or only for workforce housing.
Okay.
So
Affordable senior or workforce,
Right.
any of those
the
three.
other petition, in effect,
Okay.
says, look, they have to be used for the purpose of affordable housing or workforce housing, but they could also be sold.
Which
And then the
would
proceeds could be taken
help to build something.
help build something else.
Uh-huh.
So let me give you a real life example.
Okay.
Virginia Placer. The total cost of that project is approximately $9 million.
Okay.
We're putting 10% of that amount down, and we're borrowing in the form of a bond the other 90%.
Okay.
So in that case, we're putting $970,000, called $1 million, up, and we're borrowing $8 million.
Yeah.
We're providing housing at the cost of $1 million of equity for almost 100 people. So if you could monetize those lots, you should do the apples to apples comparison. If you have those 10 to 12 lots that are on the east side, and you realize that their zoning allows for 2 dwelling units per lot, and so that might be 4 persons per lot or something, and then you might end up with 40 people. Do you take an asset that's worth legitimately $10 million and provide housing for 40 people, or do you take $1 million times 100 and provide housing for theoretically 1,000 people? So this is the real contrast. If you
Sure.
don't allow for those funds, if you don't allow for those assets to ultimately be sold and the proceeds to be used to help a lot more people,
Right.
I don't know about you, but the idea that you could get 150% more return for your buck, 100 versus 40,
Yeah.
no, actually 1,000 versus 40. I'm not even a mathematician.
Yeah.
See, I'm just a dumb
Yeah.
tax lawyer, but I missed the math part of that. But frankly, just do the math. I
Right.
mean,
Okay. Although, and I've not heard about these two petitions before, so it's new for me. But I
Okay.
mean, I think maybe somebody thinking, oh, you sell it and then you build housing elsewhere might think, well, the town's running out of lots that they own. Where could they build if they aren't building there?
well, the town owns Carhenge. The town owns the RV lot. God forbid that the town owns Pearl property. I don't think you'll see anything built of that nature on the Pearl property. The town is also always scouting for other land. There are little infill parcels that we would love to buy.
Right, and that might not have the restriction of two houses
that don't have
per
the
lot.
density restriction, because that's zoned single family, and so that current zoning only allows
I'm going to start
two
a
dwelling
third
units.
petition, and it's going to be change it from single-family housing to big apartment buildings like we had back in Brooklyn.
Well, if we were, then you'd have to have height, though, and the height restrictions wouldn't allow you to do that.
That's
so
right.
I'm afraid that may be a lofty goal, and that you might be able to cram 1,000 people onto those 10 lots, but I think that you'd do so in a very disparate way from the rest of the town, and you'd be ruining the town character.
God forbid. Let's not even talk about windows.
But no light spilled. You're not allowed to have any natural light
exactly.
in your monolithic skyscrapers on the East End. Now, I don't think that's the best answer.
No, I guess not.
I hear
so
where you're
people
coming
should
from,
be,
but
so citizens should be looking out for these two
the point
petitions
is, please just
and thinking about
educate
chiming
yourself
in.
and ask questions. And so, in order to facilitate that sort of a process, we issued a call at the end of yesterday's meeting. So for the February 14th, 2017 council meeting,
Right.
in the morning, so it'll be sometime between 10 and 12 in the morning, we will have a work session. And we've invited the petitioners for both of these petitions.
Okay, so that is going to be coming up in the February 14th
Correct.
Town Council meeting, as you're saying.
So
and
please
it's in the
broadcast
morning.
this multiple times
Okay,
before February 14th.
Yeah, exactly. So what you're saying is if people are interested in what's going on in the East End and the lots that are currently
They should
owned by
turn
town,
out,
they should
speak
turn
up,
out, speak
and they
up,
should
and
motivate.
get educated.
If let's say you've signed one or both of the petitions, I know people who've signed them both. Please come to the meeting and learn more about what you signed.
Yeah, sure. So that's the
Because
14th.
That's the 14th of
In
February.
the morning of the 14th. The afternoon of the 14th, Pinhead is inviting people to come see our STEM lab here at 2 o'clock. If there's any community people who might be interested in using 3D printers or laser cutters, maker spaces, they should come by the high school. We'll meet at the front entrance here, the main entrance of the high school, and I'll bring everyone up to the STEM lab.
Well, I'll
2
apologize in
o'clock on the
advance that the
14th. You
7
can't
town
make
council
it.
people won't be there.
Right, exactly. I
but,
didn't figure they would want to use our 3D printers, but for the kind of maker community, I figured I might want to reach out to them and let them know that this is happening on the 14th, and it's kind of community-wide.
And that's a really
open.
unique opportunity and an asset that our town has that
Unique,
most
not
other
really unique. It's
communities
binary.
don't
It's
have.
either unique or it's not unique. It is. It's so unique. I'm very excited about it.
It's
but
really,
yeah,
really, really unique.
Oh
Yeah.
my God! Shoot me now. Unique. It is unique, and
Gag
I'm proud
me
of
with a
it.
spoon, I think,
Yeah,
would be the appropriate
exactly.
reference. Yes.
Exactly. No, but I'm very happy about it, and I'd love to share it with the community. So I'm bringing people over to see it on the 14th, the same date as what you mentioned. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want to chat about? Because I have a few questions from the community.
No, I'm always, ready to be pelted. So
Okay,
just go right
sure.
ahead.
How have your New Year's resolutions been going?
I have not exercised nearly as much as I had hoped to.
Ah.
So I have been deficient.
Turn over a new leaf. Right now, it's the 1st of February. You can do it now.
Okay, when we end the
Yeah.
interview, I'm going
Yeah.
to go use the treadmill.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the first one. The second is, what's your favorite fruit?
My favorite fruit is raspberry.
Oh, that's a good choice. I love a good raspberry. Okay, and the third one is a little bit complicated because
I wonder
know,
why that second question was relevant, though.
Oh, it doesn't have to be relevant to have people
just
want
curiosity.
to know from the
Yeah,
exactly.
okay,
People
got
want to
it.
know about you, Sean.
All right.
And the third one is I know that you, as the owner of Arroyo, hosted many kind of extracurricular, Telluride wide
Yes.
community, meetings or clubs or whatever. And I wanted to draw your attention to my participation in our curling league. And I'm going to put on my gorgeous jacket, which is for the sweeping beauties here in
I
town.
was going to
That's
say,
our
it's
team.
even color
Yeah,
customized.
I know, isn't it great? We all have these fabulous jackets, thanks to Patty. And my nickname is Gutsy.
Personalized as well.
Exactly. But so my question to you is, what extracurricular league, it doesn't have to be a sports thing, it could be Mahjong, what have you participated in that you have loved living here in Telluride? Aside from curling, for me, it's
I think-
karaoke.
Ooh.
At the corner
Do
house.
we still have, okay, Corner House.
Yeah, at
that's
the Corner
right.
House on
All right.
Wednesdays.
Yeah, because we lost our being karaoke.
Yes,
You
yes.
know, I'm a little modest, shocking as that may
Yeah.
sound, and so I'm not a karaoke
Aficionado.
talent. Yes.
You might be a talent, but you're not an aficionado.
I will
Yeah.
admit having engaged in it a few times in New York, but in one of those places on the east side that's a small little
Private booth
series
kind
of
of a
booths
thing.
with
Right, exactly.
no more than 6 people in attendance.
That's
so
not what's
it wasn't
happening
in
at
front
the
of the
corner
public.
house. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
no private karaoke here. I would really say the mahjong. I had no clue how to play mahjong when I moved here, and I knew of it that a lot of my friends' grandparents played it, grandmothers specifically,
Yeah.
and I didn't know a thing. And I had 2 customers who were very enthusiastic about playing mahjong, and each of them, sort of cajoled me into coming to a training session. In those days, it was held at the Elks Lodge. So I went to the Elks a couple months in a row, and finally, I sort of slowly became hooked. So that is, although I will say I haven't been to a recent mahjong game, and I was given flack for that the other day when
You
I
better
ran
show
into
up,
one of
mister.
the
Yeah.
Maj players.
Do you have a good game?
It depends on the year and the
Yeah.
card,
Ah.
because sometimes it just clicks, and other times there've been I've played for 5 years now, and so some years I find that the card just doesn't agree with me, and I'm never getting lucky. So
yeah.
But otherwise, unlike your game of skill,
No, I'm telling
mahjong
you,
is also a game of luck.
Yeah, well, I don't know. So far,
there's
curling
skill
just
and
seems
luck.
to be luck or unlucky. We almost didn't lose last Monday.
All right, well then that's improvement, right?
Exactly.
So are
exactly.
you?
I like to think that we're sartorial winners.
And there are trainings for curling going on
Yes.
within the community, right?
Yeah.
And so when are those? And do you
I think they're Saturday nights. I'm not sure how you figure out when they are, sign up, but it's Telluride
Okay.
Curling, and they have a pretty good presence on the web, so you should be able to navigate that. But it's a fun sport. Yeah, very
Well,
goofy.
If
Yeah.
I were to take that up, I might actually make some progress on my New Year's resolution as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's a little
More
bit
than
of
just
exercise.
flipping tiles.
Especially when you're drinking afterwards. My God. your
No one
bicep
drinks
is
playing
gonna
mahjong.
get-
What are you talking
I'm
about?
oh, right, exactly. I'm talking about after curling.
Oh,
But anyhow,
okay,
anything
all
else?
right.
Those are the ends of my. That's the end of my questions for you.
I think that
Anything
pretty much covers it for
All right,
February. So please
awesome.
turn out on
Yeah.
February 14th.
That's my alarm.
Basically, there's a informal town hall at your town council in the morning
Mm-hmm.
to talk about the petitions circulating for affordable housing and alternatives that your town council may be able to put in place that would alleviate expense and burden in certain ways.
There we go. So turn out February 14th for the town council meeting, and tune in next month for another update with the mayor.
Absolutely. Sarah,
Awesome.
thanks as
Thanks so
always.
much for your
It's always a
time.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.